everybody, welcome to another discussion about Dragon Age Veilguard. Today we're going to be discussing the big news that came out recently about the choices that will carry over from Inquisition. Now, before we get into this, I would like to give a big spoiler warning for multiple BioWare games. I will be discussing events in Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, and Dragon Age Inquisition. I will also be giving examples from Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. So beware of spoilers from those. So I guess we'll go ahead and jump right in. I know a lot of people are upset about the choices of carryover. For those who haven't been following along, it has been revealed that we are basically going to have 3 questions to answer within the character creation area regarding our carryover from Inquisition. Those questions are: who did your Inquisitor romance? Did you disband the Inquisition or keep it together? And if, in your last discussion with Solus, if you promised to stop him at all costs, or if you promised to redeem him. And those are the 3 questions. And it's got a lot of people upset. A lot of people are upset because in the past games, it was a direct 1-to-1-to-1. In Inquisition, we had the Dragon Age Keep, which had a lot of questions about the past games to carry over. And even roaming around Inquisition, you could see and hear those questions having an effect. Characters in the background will discuss who's King of Ferelden, and the Wardens, and all these different things. And it feels good. It feels like it's part of a living world. So to have it cut down to only 3 questions, it's got a lot of people concerned, a lot of people upset. I've heard and read things where people say it feels like BioWare doesn't care about our past games anymore, that they're just throwing away the story so far, and things like that. So I wanted to come on here and give my thoughts on the matter. And my thoughts are, I'm okay with it. And I will explain why. Like I said, I'm a long-time Dragon Age fan. I love Dragon Age 1, 2, and Inquisition. But I'm okay with there being very limited choices for this carryover. And the reason why, there's 2 reasons. The first one I'll go into is simply time and location. Origins 2 and Inquisition all took place in Southern Thedas. They all took place in very similar connected areas. Origins was purely in Ferelden, but Inquisition, you're wandering around Ferelden. In Dragon Age 2, Hawke is from Ferelden. So of course the events of Dragon Age Origins are really going to affect, especially like Inquisition, where you're roaming around some of the same places your Warden did, like Redcliffe. You're gonna hear about the Warden, you're gonna hear about the Blight, you're gonna hear about Loghain. That makes sense. But in the new game, in Veilguard, we start over in Tevinter, it looks like. We know we're gonna be going to Antiva and Navarra, and Weishaupt. And the fact is, that's a completely different part of the world that we've never explored before. We don't have a history in these lands. And what history we do have, I hate to say it, isn't affected by our choices in the past game. I mean, what will people know about the Inquisition? They closed the breach. And did the Inquisition get disbanded, or is it still together? Which is one of the questions we have to answer. They're not going to know or care if we sided with the Mages or the Templars. They're not going to know or care who died or who was left behind in the Fade at Adamant. They're not even gonna really care about who's on the Orlesian throne because it's been almost a decade, and chances are, with the way Orlay's political structure is, whoever it was has already been assassinated and replaced. And they're not even really going to care much about who's on the Sunburst throne. Tevinter has their own chantry. We're going to be dealing mostly with the Crows in Antiva, which aren't exactly a religious sect. And Navarra, it looks like we're probably going to be dealing mostly with Emmerich and the Mortalitasi. And some could say, like, what about the Grey Wardens? They've been a part of all 3 games, shouldn't they have, input? But the Grey Wardens have always been very separated. Some could argue, what about Blackwall? We don't really get an answer about Blackwall. Well, with Blackwall, he has 2 endings, really. If he joins the Wardens, it's kind of insinuated that he dies. If he doesn't join the Wardens and he's living as Tom Rainier, he's back in Orlais and Ferelden, trying to find the people he wronged and make amends, as well as help the little folk. Like, he ain't in this area. The Grey Wardens of Adamant tried to rebuild over there, and then vanished. We don't know where they went. I have theories, but I don't think they've gone to Weishaupt. So, a lot of our choices in this new part of the world aren't going to matter. The choices that do matter are the ones that are going to directly involve Solus, which are the questions we have. So that's one reason why I'm not too upset, because I was kind of expecting it. I was hoping, actually, for less cameo appearances from Alistair, because we've seen Alistair in all 3 games at this point, and yay, great. I don't need to see him again to know he's a part of the world. But that also comes to the second portion of why I'm okay with it, and that's, to me, for the most part, the cross-game carryover has been extremely superficial. It's been set dressing. It affects things you might hear in the background, a few codex entries, one quest in Inquisition where it actually made a difference, which was Adamant, because it changed who went to the Fade with you in terms of the Warden. Was it Stroud, Alistair, or Loghain? And that had an effect because, somebody dies in that quest. Somebody gets left behind in the Fade. But that's really the only one I can think of that makes an actual impact. A good example is who rules Ferelden. Is it Alistair? Is it Honora? Is it both? If you do the mage quest and you side with the mages, at the end of it, whoever rules Ferelden comes in and basically tells the mages to get out. Who is in charge does not change that. It doesn't even really change the way it's presented to the mages. It's, we gave you this chance, now get the hell out or we're going to make you leave. No matter what. And here I'm thinking, well, surely Alistair would treat it differently than Honora, and them working together would certainly be a difference. But no matter what, it's the same gist. It's the same vibe. Maybe they've just both become more accustomed to ruling with a harsher fist because they're protective of their country, but it still struck me as weird that no matter what, even the vibe of that scene is the same. Another example is with Leliana. In one of my millions of playthroughs, I did kill Leliana in Dragon Age Origins because I wanted to taint the ashes and get the Berserker power. Leliana comes back in Inquisition, we have a single discussion about it, and other than that, it had no effect on her. Actually dying made no effect. It didn't change her view on what happened at the Enclave. It didn't change the way she spoke about the Maker. It didn't affirm or deter her faith. It was a conversation, and then Leliana's the same in every playthrough. And I didn't like that. And then the last one, and one I know a lot of people complained about, was Hawk. I mean, your Hawk could have been a blood mage, dated a blood mage, and still would have come out saying, oh, blood mages are the fucking worst, essentially. And it's like, what the hell? Are they saying no matter what, has Hawk just learned that blood magic is evil at this point? What about Meryl? What about him, if he was a blood mage? Or is it a case of, oh, Hawk's a fucking hypocrite? Or is it a case of that it didn't matter? It really didn't matter. I mean, even in 2, your own choices didn't matter, because things turned out the same no matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you side with the mages or Templars in the end. Orsino still becomes an abomination, Meredith still goes mad, and you still end up leaving Kirkwall. So, I'm used to the choices not making that big of a difference. If they treat the 3 choices that they give us in the character creator with emphasis and actual effect on the game, I will be so happy. I will be over the moon happy. Because when I think of choices have an effect on a game, my mind immediately goes to the original Mass Effect trilogy, not Andromeda. And here's why. And again, here's some spoilers for Mass Effect. In Mass Effect 1, at a quest, you have the option to either kill a companion or to talk him down. This companion is Rex. You find a cure for the genophage, which is a big thing for his people. I'm not going to get into too much detail. And in order to stop the bad guy, you have to destroy that facility and destroy the cure. He's angry about that because he wants to cure his people. Fair enough. Now, you can talk him down if you have enough Renegade or Paragon points, or you'll have to kill him. Or somebody else will have to kill him. So those are the options in that case. Talk him down or kill him. In Mass Effect 2, on a personal quest for one of your companions, Mordin Solus, you find another case that's surrounding the cure for the cure for this disease, the genophage, because Mordin, his people are the ones who made that illness. It was essentially a war crime. But we find notes about the cure at the end of it, and there's a question of do you keep the data or delete it? Because it was found unethically, but it could potentially help in the future. You can keep or destroy it. That's that choice in that situation. But then we come to Mass Effect 3. In Mass Effect 3, we find Mordin Solus again. And he is actively seeking to cure the genophage now. You meet a female Krogan by the name of Eve, who is immune to the genophage, or who has the ability to help synthesize this cure in some way or another. In most playthroughs, Mordin is able to use Eve to make the cure, goes up to distribute it, and ends up dying in an explosion while successfully curing the genophage. Or, if your Shepard decides you don't want to cure the genophage, you try to stop Mordin and you shoot him and he dies before he can go and cure it. Either way, Mordin Solus dies. Here's where past games have an effect on the current. If you chose to kill Rex and destroy the data, Mordin Solus can live. And here's why. If you kill Rex, then the one who would be leading a cured Krogan is someone named Reeve. Reeve is angry, bitter, warmongering. He's basically said, once we're cured, we're gonna go and we're gonna take over the galaxy and we're gonna mess up all you people. He would not make a good leader. If you don't have Malin's notes, the ones from the unethical experiments, then Eve will die in synthesizing the cure. Eve could have potentially tempered Reeve. She could have been a voice of reason, a leader in her own right, but if she dies, then it's very clear that if we cure the genophage, we'll win this war, but then we're immediately going to be in a war with the Krogan. If you talk to Morden about that when he's getting ready to go up and die to cure the genophage, he can agree that now's not the time. It would put more people at danger in the long run. So he'll make it look like it was cured. Then he'll go off and become a war asset. But he survives. Literally, 2 important choices from past games completely decide whether or not a very beloved character lives or dies. That's impact. That is an effect of past choices affecting a current game, beyond window dressing. So, yeah. I'm not too upset because the fact is Dragon Age choices haven't mattered much in the past. It's been all on the surface. If these 3 choices have a major effect, I will be happy. I will be beyond happy. If those choices can change how the game actually plays out, like if your Inquisitor swore to take vengeance on Solus or chose to redeem him, actually affecting Solus's outcome, I will be over the moon. Now, mind you, I'm not entirely happy with it. I do think there were a few more things that could have and should have been answered. One, for me at least, was whether or not Morgan had the old god baby, because Kieran was a part of Inquisition. Interacted with Mythal. And the whole idea of an old god soul is kind of important. And we know Morrigan's going to be in the game. Another thing connected to Morgan is the Well of Sorrows. Who drank from it? It felt like such a big deal in Inquisition deciding who drinks from the Well of Sorrows. Solus gets super angry if you drink from the well instead of letting Morgan do it, because you are bound to the will of an elven god. And that question's not getting answered. Maybe they will answer it. Maybe there's a different kind of workaround. Maybe Solus finds a way to basically change that. But those are the 2 questions I wish had been on there that were going to get addressed. I do try to bear in mind that it's not entirely the fault of the devs. I'm sure they would have loved to touch base on more things, but the fact is, the last decade hasn't been a decade of pure work on Veilguard. This past decade has been filled with a lot of mess within EA and BioWare. They took talent away from what they were calling Dreadwolf at the time to push onto Mass Effect, Andromeda, and Anthem, which both flopped. Originally, they thought Dreadwolf was going to be a online multiplayer game, but they scrapped that when they realized that the fans wouldn't stand for it, so they had to start over. They've switched writing teams back and forth. There's been writer strikes. There's been a plague. It hasn't been smooth sailing for these devs. In the end, they've still had a deadline. And I am much happier with the idea that they decided to focus on a few important questions that revolved around Solus, rather than trying to fit in a million answers. I'd rather they focus on a few and do them well, rather than try to fit in a bunch and do them badly. But in the end, I won't be able to know just how good it is until I play the game. If those questions end up being half-assed and not mattering at all, then yeah, I'm going to be pissed. But if they have an effect and actually impact the game, then I'll be happy with what we got. Hell, if they decide to bring out Well of Sorrow stuff in a DLC, I would probably buy it if I like the base game enough. So, for people out there who are very upset about the character creation carryover choices, that's fair. It's okay to be upset. Like, it wasn't what anyone was expecting. It was a shock. And that's okay to be upset with it. I just implore and encourage people to still come at it with an open mindset and to think about some of these things, about how much impact did your past choices really have in Dragon Age, and why would these new areas of the world care about some of these other choices? And to try and be an open-minded and still try to be optimistic. In the end, it is a video game. It's a video game that looks very fun. Especially if you were intrigued by Solus and the Elven Gods, it looks like it's going to really dive into that. And we get to explore new parts of Thedas. Like, that's still cool. I mean, you can even think of it as... I don't want to say a spin-off, but a carry-on, a passing of the torch. Because no matter what, no matter how impactful the choices are, at a certain point, they have to stop letting those choices matter, because otherwise they simply won't be able to make it into a game. There's so many different ways to play Inquisition. If every single choice had an effect on the new game, then the new game would end up becoming so bloated with data, and it would be a nightmare. Try to be positive. If you're still excited to play the game, be excited to play the game. If you're cautious, be cautious. If you're not interested, that's fine. These are just my opinions. These are my thoughts. This is the way I've been seeing it. And I still hope those of us who play Veilguard have a lot of fun. And I hope those who don't still maybe follow along and check out people who do and see if maybe you might want to play it in the future. If not, that's perfectly okay too. No matter what though, I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And may God be with you.